Is this €4 sleep mask from Amazon enough? When it comes to sleep masks, there are kind of two different types. The first one are the ones that are completely malleable, foldable, and the second ones are a little bit sturdier in order to cover your eyes properly. And especially in the nose area, I noticed with the sleep mask I also already had, and I bought the exact item again, and I also use it and then just wash it again. This means that there is some deterioration going on, which you could possibly prevent with having this in a laundry bag, kind of when throwing it into the washing machine. So this is now a new one. Why? Because I wanted two. One that stays at home and one that is always in my travel bag, because otherwise, whenever I travel, I need to pack these. And an idea I had is to just have my backpack always packed. Now, it also comes with this adjustable strap you can see here, and you can just adjust on both sides how long this is. Kind of the usual type. Now, in general, a sleep mask, I think it is useful in order to sleep in areas in which there is light. So if you don't have block-out curtains in your sleeping room, for example, or in your bedroom, or you want to sleep on a train or a bus, then a sleep mask I found to be rather effective in dimming down the light. Previously I used a combination of a cap and maybe also a hoodie, but it just never really worked that well. What you also are creating by using a sleep mask is a trigger. Recently on a podcast, I think it was called Stronger by Science, I heard that he just brings his darkness and also his silence using earbuds, or earplugs rather, with him. So by wearing the same thing whenever you sleep, you basically are kind of associating the wearing of this with sleep itself. And I also noticed, because I sometimes sleep during the day, that during the day especially, it is really necessary to block out the light. Now, this specifically here doesn't block out all the light. It is just not able to, because this format, and this is kind of the classic format I would guess, is just not really able to block out totally all the light. Because if you put this on, and it's a little too tight, so maybe let's just use the other one, which is already the right size. Now, if you put this on, then down here, of course it's not flat. So there are basically, it's three-dimensional. Your nose actually stands out, so depending on how thick the bridge of your nose is, and depending on how wide the rest of your face is, if you, for example, would have higher cheekbones, then this would maybe not be such a problem, but there also probably would be some area in between which you cannot really cover. So a sleep mask like this, that is in its format, in its design flat, and then adapts to your face, but can only adapt in a given area, not basically infinitely small, but is kind of fixed, so therefore it just bends over here, over your nose basically. And this is where the light gets in. And you cannot really completely block out the light. What you would have to do is you would have to press these two in here, and this would prevent the light. And so therefore you would have to have kind of a nose bridge, which you see on glasses or on VR glasses. And this is kind of the problem with this design. I kind of knew this already, and I guessed it already, because if this problem wouldn't exist, why would then these other products actually exist? This here is the second design that also exists, and these are more like goggles. So there is basically cushioning here, and then in the front you have basically the cover, but you have kind of goggles on here, and then there is only the sleep mask. And this probably blocks out more light. Now, why didn't I get this design? Because it's a lot thicker, and I already kind of knew that I wanted the same thing twice. Maybe I will in the future get basically the thicker one, or the better one for home use, and just keep one of these in my travel bag, because I figured if I have something that is thick, then I might consider not taking it into the bag, because then it's just a lot. But this is not a lot. Another issue with having the thicker one would be that you could potentially not throw it just into the laundry machine, which you can with this here. Now, given that the material out here is so well fragile, it already is breaking on many points here. And this is kind of a downside because it now looks not really that nice anymore, but looks rather used. I also often have it on this wooden plate here, and this might also cause some deterioration. What you also are already seeing, and I had the sleep mask for maybe about a year at this point in time, that the rubber band also is not the best anymore. It is only €4. I think it didn't even come with these usually higher costs. So I searched for a sleep mask and I didn't order, I filtered the Amazon listing by price, and I just took one of the cheaper ones because they just all sell at 10-15 euros. But why do they? I mean, this is not 10 or 15 euros. This is probably produced for, I don't know, €1 at max, or maybe €2. Of course, it depends on import and so on and so forth, but the rest is usually just margin. So if you find a cheaper product by filtering by price, which often leads to not very optimal results, because obviously Amazon wants to nudge you into using their Amazon approved things with their ads in it. Now, in total, I think I will, as I stated, I will keep one of these sleep masks here. Now, in addition, as kind of an additional note, a potential problem is the following. If you wear a sleep mask, your head is basically more insulated. So this means, especially in summer, if your head is probably best to be cooled, or is better if it's cool compared to it not being cool. And therefore in summer especially, if you already are kind of heated up due to maybe 30 degrees in your room, and you don't have to have a $5,000 or $2,000 sleeping mattress that actually cools you down, then this might actually, especially on the forehead, because the forehead is kind of the surface area that is not covered by anything, and therefore the forehead maybe acts kind of as a cooling mechanism compared to the rest of the face or the head, because here we have insulating in form of hair, and so the forehead might act as kind of the cooler here. And if you then have this on here, and sometimes you might not put it fully on, but sometimes you might just put it on, and then you might turn it off basically because maybe there is just some disturbance, or it's dark enough. And if you have it on like this, it basically insulates this cooling mechanism here. So therefore your head over time, not over time, but over the night, might be not as cool. And this might cause maybe some trouble sleeping. I figured it might have a very small. Nevertheless, I also notice it now. I mean, it's just a little bit warmer, similar to how you would be wearing a hat. And now that this is a little bit tighter, we also begin to see one of the other design flaws of design like this. It's that if you wear it tight enough that it would cover basically this area here between your nose and your cheekbones, then it actually touches too much of the eyeball. And now what I noticed is whenever I slept, for example, on a hand in a bus like this here, and I had one eye covered for a certain amount of time, then what happened when I woke up is that I couldn't really focus on this eye. So what seems to have happened, at least that's my theory, is that the eyeball is kind of malleable. And now over a certain time, if it is malleable, then it changes its form. Similar to how maybe, what would be a similar, the inside of an egg, if you just, I mean, it's also similar in terms of color and maybe also similar in terms of squishiness, you could say. So you take an egg, you take off the shell, and if you now press it for a certain period of time, it begins to change form. And now, of course, your eye probably reverts back. That's the good news. But the bad news is that over time, if you have a sphere and it's ideally spherical, and then over time you just add pressure and pressure, then this might actually change the form. Similar to how if you only view things up here and don't use your eye as much, your optical lenses also don't get stretched, and so basically your optical lenses, if there is light incoming, then they are like this or like this. And so the light that is incoming focuses on a different length, and therefore it focuses ideally always on the back of your eye, on your retina. So now by having something on your face for an extended period of time in a certain frequency, let's say it is once a day for about a third of the day or a fourth of the day, then this also might change partially your eyeball's structure. And I think this is something to consider when wearing an eye mask like this. So therefore, in the long run, one of the other options, one of the more expensive but also more bulky options, would probably be the better one, and it also blocks out more light. But since I just didn't want to buy something like this that is fancy and then I would find myself not using it, I about 1 year ago bought the first one, and I just bought the simplest one, and that also was cheap, so therefore it was not a bad financial decision if I turned out to not use it. And so because I now already have this one, and because of this new concept that I cannot really forget things if I have them already in my backpack, and also my backpack as emergency backpack, I bought the second one. Both are not ideal. I might, as I said, get another one for home use, but nonetheless, this is, I think, a convenient solution if you just want to get it for a plane or a bus and to sleep then better.